Territorial integrity was once a bedrock principle of international relations. It meant that national borders were generally considered fixed and inviolable. For many decades, this fundamental norm shaped the interactions between countries and underpinned international law. This widely accepted principle contributed significantly to a more predictable global order. The creation of new nation-states was a rare occurrence, precisely because this norm held strong. If we look at recent history, only 3 new countries have gained widespread international recognition and UN membership in the 30 years leading up to 2025. Media Group. Highlights of UN General Assembly meetings, scenes of newly independent countries' recognitions at distribute_equally, East Timor in 2002, Montenegro in 2006, and South Sudan in 2011. Most attempts by separatist movements to break away and form new states were stymied by the strong international commitment to territorial integrity. This commitment, however, is now showing clear signs of weakening, and the old rules appear to be fraying significantly. Major world powers, particularly the permanent members of the UN Security Council, have traditionally played a crucial role in upholding this vital norm of territorial integrity. However, the previous consensus on this issue is visibly fracturing. Donald Trump's presidency, for instance, marked a notable departure for the United States from its long-standing foreign policy positions. His administration often adopted an approach that diverged sharply from established American diplomatic traditions regarding global order. Mr. Trump openly questioned the sanctity and permanence of existing international borders on several occasions. He controversially suggested, for example, that Russia should be allowed to retain parts of Ukrainian territory. He also made headlines with remarks about the United States potentially annexing Canada or purchasing Greenland. Furthermore, in early 2025, he stated that Ukrainians may be Russian someday, directly challenging Ukraine's sovereignty and national identity. These kinds of statements undermine the very foundations of the post-World War II global order. When an exceptionally influential nation like the United States begins to publicly question the principle of territorial integrity, the impact reverberates globally. Such questioning sends powerful and often unsettling signals throughout the entire international community. Other nations, both large and small, may consequently feel less constrained by previously agreed-upon international laws and diplomatic precedents. Non-state actors, including a multitude of separatist groups and independence movements worldwide, are also observing these developments with keen interest. They might perceive a window of opportunity emerging from this changing geopolitical environment. If the world's leading superpower no longer treats national borders as inviolable, then the established rules governing statehood and sovereignty can appear to be open for renegotiation. This situation undoubtedly creates widespread uncertainty, but for some, it also presents perceived openings to pursue long-held ambitions. This noticeable erosion of established international norms is not an isolated phenomenon occurring in a vacuum. It is intrinsically connected to broader and more profound shifts currently reshaping the global geopolitical landscape. We are clearly witnessing a significant resurgence of great power competition, reminiscent of earlier historical eras. The international order itself is becoming increasingly transactional in nature. Long-term principles are sometimes being subordinated to the pursuit of immediate, short-term strategic advantages or economic gains. This shift inherently makes the world a more volatile and less predictable place for all actors. Established states must now navigate new and complex uncertainties. Aspiring states or those seeking independence face a more complex and potentially riskier path to achieving their goals. The very future of sovereignty as a concept seems less clear than it has been for generations. Donald Trump's distinctive approach to international relations is overwhelmingly characterized by its transactional nature. This perspective extends deeply into how he views complex issues such as statehood, sovereignty, and secession. For Mr. Trump, these are not primarily matters of inherent right, historical justice, or established international law. Instead, they are often viewed as potential opportunities for striking deals that he believes will benefit United States interests, or at least his particular perception of those interests at any given moment. This pragmatic, deal-making lens reshapes the calculations for separatist movements around the world. They must now consider how their aspirations might align with the shifting priorities of a major power led by such a figure. The traditional pathways to recognition are being supplemented, if not supplanted, by this new, more unpredictable dynamic. This transactional environment, heavily influenced by Trump's approach, presents a mixed bag of potential opportunities for various separatist movements. Such movements may find that they no longer need to solely rely on proving a just cause based on historical grievances or demonstrating widespread, democratically expressed popular support for independence. Instead, they might gain significant traction and even crucial international backing by strategically aligning themselves with a powerful country, particularly the United States under a Trump-like leadership. This alignment would likely need to offer tangible strategic advantages, such as access to resources, key geographical locations, or support in wider geopolitical contests. Furthermore, Trump's known preference for personal diplomacy, exemplified by his direct talks with leaders like Kim Jong-un in 2018, could allow charismatic separatist leaders to bypass traditional institutional channels and appeal to him directly, hoping to strike a favorable bargain. Conversely, this new landscape is fraught with significant dangers for these same separatist movements. Donald Trump's documented disregard for human rights narratives and arguments based on the principle of self-determination poses a major risk. These are arguments that separatist groups have traditionally and heavily relied upon to garner international sympathy and support for their causes. He has often shown a preference for, and even admiration of, strong authoritarian rulers. Think of figures like Turkey's President Erdogan or Russia's President Putin, both of whom have histories of forcefully suppressing secessionist movements within their own countries or spheres of influence, such as the Kurds and the Chechens, respectively. Consequently, impoverished separatist groups or those lacking immediate obvious strategic value to the U.S. are highly unlikely to find his backing or even his attention. This transactional approach was evident during Donald Trump's first term in office. His administration showed very little interest in actively backing most independence movements globally. For instance, the Kurdish groups in the Middle East, particularly in Syria and Iraq, who had been vital U.S. partners in the fight against ISIS, found American support to be unreliable and conditional. In October 2019, Trump controversially ordered a U.S. troop withdrawal from northern Syria, a move widely seen as abandoning the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces to a Turkish offensive, though he later partially reversed this decision under pressure. Similarly, his administration did not respond to direct appeals for support from prominent figures like Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of Nigeria's Biafra separatist movement. These examples clearly demonstrate his pragmatic, interest-driven stance, rather than one based on consistent ideological support for self-determination. The path to statehood is increasingly resembling a geopolitical transaction rather than a process governed by legal or moral claims. The success of secessionist movements in the current international climate will likely depend more on their ability to serve the specific interests of a dominant global or regional power. This means that aspiring states must be prepared to offer tangible assets in exchange for recognition or support. Such assets could include privileged access to vital trade routes, the granting of rights for military bases in strategic locations, or control over significant natural resources like oil, gas, or rare earth minerals. The traditional criteria for statehood, such as a defined territory, a permanent population, a functioning government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other states, while still relevant, may become secondary to these strategic considerations. Legitimacy derived from popular will or historical justice might carry less weight than a compelling geostrategic offer. Several current independence movements around the world might find themselves navigating this new complex marketplace. Consider the Kurdish separatists in the oil-rich regions of northern Iraq. Their vast energy reserves could serve as a powerful bargaining chip with major powers seeking to secure energy supplies. Somaliland, which has been functionally independent in the strategically vital Horn of Africa for decades, could leverage its stable governance and key location along major shipping lanes to gain further recognition. Even Greenland, which is seeking independence from Denmark, could find its aspirations intertwined with great power competition in the Arctic, a region of growing economic and military importance due to climate change and newly accessible resources. Similarly, the Pacific territory of New Caledonia, with its significant nickel deposits and ongoing efforts to gain independence from France, might attract the interest of powers looking to secure critical mineral supply chains. These examples underscore how practical material offerings are becoming central to the calculus of secession. Donald Trump's broader geopolitical vision, as far as it can be discerned, appears to favor a global order characterized by stable spheres of influence, primarily controlled by a few great powers. A world that is increasingly fractured by numerous small, breakaway regions and newly independent states might seem inherently chaotic and counterproductive to this vision of managed stability. Such fragmentation could lead to increased local conflicts and complicate international diplomacy and trade. Therefore, while he might tolerate or even selectively support secession if it clearly serves a specific, larger strategic purpose for the United States, such as weakening a rival power or securing a crucial asset, he is unlikely to encourage independence movements as a general guiding principle of his foreign policy. His approach would likely be selective and opportunistic, rather than ideological. It is important to consider what kind of success these independence movements might realistically achieve in this evolving international environment. Full, universally recognized statehood, complete with UN membership and all its attendant rights and responsibilities, will likely remain a rare and difficult accomplishment. However, we may see an increase in cases of partial recognition, similar to the status currently held by entities like Kosovo or Northern Cyprus. Aspiring states such as Catalonia in Spain, Iraqi Kurdistan, Somaliland, or even certain well-administered parts of currently unstable countries like Libya and Syria could potentially achieve this form of limited sovereignty. This would especially be the case if they can demonstrate their ability to offer clear, undeniable strategic value to a powerful patron state or a coalition of interested nations, effectively carving out a niche for themselves in the new geopolitical marketplace. A deeply concerning prediction arising from these shifting global dynamics is the potential for a significant increase in separatist-related violence. There are several compelling reasons why this is a likely and unfortunate outcome in the coming years. Renewed attempts at secession, potentially spurred by a perceived weakening of the norm of territorial integrity and the transactional policies of major powers, could be one primary factor. Some breakaway regions, feeling emboldened by the prospect of support from a powerful external patron, might choose to act more aggressively or assertively in pursuing their independence claims. This creates a volatile mix, where miscalculations or provocations could easily escalate into open conflict, destabilizing entire regions and drawing in external actors. The hope for quick recognition might lead to rash decisions. The reaction of incumbent states to these resurgent separatist ambitions is another critical element in this dangerous equation. Feeling less constrained by previously respected international norms and the oversight of global institutions, such as the United Nations or the European Union, which Donald Trump has frequently criticized and sought to undermine, these central governments might feel empowered to crush separatist movements with greater force and fewer repercussions. The weakening of global governance structures, which have historically played a role in mediating such conflicts and advocating for human rights, plays a crucial role here. Trump's vocal attacks on these institutions, coupled with actions like cutting U.S. funding for crucial UN peacekeeping operations, can only exacerbate this trend, leaving minority groups and aspiring states more vulnerable to state-led repression. Reflecting on the overall future for independence movements, it becomes clear that it is characterized by heightened volatility and profound uncertainty. The success or failure of any given movement will depend on a complex and often unpredictable interplay of various factors. Critical among these will be precise timing, the personal charisma and diplomatic skill of separatist leaders, and, perhaps most importantly in this new era, their demonstrable strategic utility to larger, more powerful countries. The traditional path to sovereignty, often envisioned as a struggle for earned legitimacy, based on principles of self-determination and popular will, is increasingly being overshadowed. Instead, sovereignty risks being cynically auctioned off to the highest bidder or the most strategically aligned partner in a global geopolitical marketplace. In conclusion, the traditional principles that have long underpinned the concepts of statehood and territorial integrity are undeniably eroding before our eyes. In this emerging new era, the price of statehood is being fundamentally redefined, often in starkly transactional and pragmatic terms, rather than through appeals to universal values or international law. This shift carries with it the significant risk of ushering in a period of greater global instability and more frequent, intense conflicts related to the myriad of unresolved separatist ambitions that exist across the globe. The international community must brace itself for a more turbulent future, where the map of the world could be contested with renewed vigor and potentially with increased bloodshed as the rules of the game continue to change.